Certainly. Here is the first part of the story for you, presented as a captivating narrative. Part 1. The decision of Nick. The office felt emptier than ever. Despite the busy hum of computers and the muted conversations that filled the corridors, an unsettling void lingered in the heart of Bennett Technologies. Nick Bennett stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of his father's corner office, staring at the cityscape of New York City sprawled below him. It had been 3 weeks since the sudden passing of his father, Richard Bennett, and the weight of his absence was a burden Nick could hardly bear. The room was just as Richard had left it. His mahogany desk was meticulously organized, and the smell of his favorite Cuban cigars still lingered faintly in the air. Nick could almost hear his father's commanding voice discussing corporate strategies or berating an underperforming executive. But now, it was just Nick and the oppressive silence. Nick ran a hand through his hair, still trying to process the whirlwind of the past few weeks. His father had been the guiding force of Bennett Technologies, a pioneering tech company known for its cutting-edge innovations and relentless ambition. Now, as the sole heir, Nick was thrust into the spotlight, expected to lead the company with the same ruthlessness and vision as his father. But Nick was not his father. While he had always admired Richard's shrewd business acumen and charisma, Nick's heart lay in the innovation side of the business. He was a visionary, not a strategist, preferring to lose himself in the development labs rather than boardrooms. However, the mantle of leadership was now his, and he needed to understand the company beyond the surface level. It was during one of these moments of reflection that an unsettling suspicion began to creep into Nick's mind. Over the past few months, he had noticed discrepancies in financial reports and projects that seemed to stall without explanation. There were whispers of corruption, murmurs of insider dealings that his father had been too proud or too blind to acknowledge. Could Richard's death have been a catalyst for something more sinister? A soft knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. He turned to see Oliver, his father's longtime assistant, stepping into the office. The older man's face was lined with grief, his eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep. "Nick," Oliver began, his voice a soft murmur of respect. "I just wanted to check in and see how you're holding up." Nick offered a tight smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Thank you, Oliver. It's been difficult, but I'm managing." Oliver nodded, his gaze drifting to the desk where Richard had once reigned supreme. "He had high hopes for you, you know. Always said you'd take the company to new heights." Nick shifted uncomfortably. "I hope I can live up to that." The two stood in silence for a moment, each lost in their memories of the man who had dominated this office. Finally, Nick spoke again, his tone more decisive. "Oliver, I've been thinking, I want to get a closer look at how things are really running around here. Not just from this office, but from the ground level." Oliver's eyebrows rose slightly. "What are you planning to do?" Nick turned back to the window, his reflection mingling with the city below. "I'm going undercover. As a janitor, I need to see the operations from a different perspective, understand what the employees think, what they know." A surprised chuckle escaped Oliver. "A janitor? That's quite the role reversal." Nick smiled faintly. "Sometimes you need to get your hands dirty to uncover the truth. Besides, it's the only way I'll truly understand what's happening beneath the surface." Oliver considered this, nodding slowly. "Your father would have admired your dedication. Just be careful, Nick. There's a lot at stake." "I know," Nick replied, a steely resolve hardening in his eyes. "But I need to do this. For the company, for my father, and for myself." As Oliver left the office, Nick turned his gaze back to the bustling streets of New York. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with potential dangers and revelations. But Nick was ready to face whatever lay beneath the polished veneer of Bennett Technologies. With a deep breath, he stepped away from the window, leaving behind the comforts of the executive office to embark on a journey that would test his resolve and redefine his understanding of leadership. And as he closed the door behind him, Nick knew there was no turning back. The world of Bennett Technologies awaited, along with all its hidden truths. Part 2. The introduction of Mia. The fluorescent lights flickered momentarily in the vast expanse of the open office space. Rows of identical cubicles stretched endlessly, each adorned with monitors and keyboards, an army of digital sentinels watching over Bennett Technologies. Employees buzzed around, their footsteps barely audible over the soft hum of computers and the occasional ring of a phone. It was the perfect stage for Mia Alvarez to work her magic. Mia sat at her desk, typing furiously on her keyboard, eyes fixed on the cascading lines of code that danced across her screen. The office was alive with the frenetic energy of a tech giant in perpetual motion, but for Mia, it was just another day of trying to make her voice heard. Her cubicle was decorated with motivational quotes and bright post-it notes filled with ideas, a testament to her vibrant personality and unyielding determination. Her hair, pulled back in a practical ponytail, revealed a face marked by youthful intensity and focus. She was a rising star in the data analysis department, known for her innovative ideas and relentless work ethic. Yet, despite her brilliance, Mia found herself fighting against a tide of bureaucracy and indifference. "Hey, Mia," called a familiar voice, pulling her attention away from her screen. It was Jason, a fellow analyst, and one of the few people in the office who shared her passion for data-driven innovation. "Hey, Jason," Mia replied with a quick smile, pausing her work to face him. "I heard you've got something big planned for the next team meeting," he said, leaning against the edge of her cubicle. Mia nodded, her eyes lighting up with excitement. "Yeah, I've been working on a new predictive analytics model. It could really change the way we approach customer engagement." Jason raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed. "That sounds amazing. I hope they actually listen to you this time." Mia's smile faltered slightly. "I hope so too. It's frustrating, you know? Having all these ideas and seeing them pushed aside because they don't fit the traditional mold." Jason nodded in sympathy. "Keep pushing, Mia. Your ideas are worth hearing." Just then, a tall, unassuming man approached them, pushing a cleaning cart filled with supplies. He wore a blue janitor's uniform, the name Nick embroidered on his shirt. As he maneuvered the cart past Mia's cubicle, he glanced at her computer screen, his eyes lingering on the complex algorithms displayed there. "Sorry to interrupt," Nick said with a polite nod. "Didn't mean to eavesdrop, but that looks impressive. You must be some kind of genius to make sense of all that data." Mia laughed, the compliment catching her off guard. "Thanks, but it's really just a lot of trial and error. Do you work here often?" "Yeah, I'm just the janitor," Nick replied, his tone casual, though his eyes betrayed a keen interest. "Name's Nick. Nice to meet you." "Nice to meet you too, Nick," Mia said, extending a hand. "I'm Mia, and this is Jason." Nick shook her hand, his grip firm yet friendly. "You both work with data, right? Must be pretty exciting, figuring out all those patterns." Mia shrugged modestly. "It has its moments, but sometimes it feels like nobody's really interested in what we have to say." Nick nodded, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. "Well, if you ever need a fresh pair of eyes, I'm pretty good at cleaning up messes, both literal and metaphorical," he joked, earning a chuckle from Jason. "I'll keep that in mind," Mia said with a smile. "You never know when we might need a new perspective." As Nick continued on his rounds, Mia watched him go, a curious feeling stirring within her. There was something about him, something more than his easy demeanor and quick wit, but she shook the thought away, returning to her work with renewed focus. Unbeknownst to Mia, Nick was already devising a plan to gather information from every corner of Bennett Technologies. As he pushed his cart down the hall, he replayed the brief interaction in his mind, recognizing Mia's passion and potential. She was different, he could tell. One of the few who genuinely cared about the company's success and integrity. Meanwhile, Mia turned back to her computer, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she lost herself in her work. She didn't yet realize how pivotal her role would be in the unfolding drama, nor how deeply intertwined her fate was with that of the mysterious janitor who had wandered into her life. But as the office continued its relentless march toward innovation, one thing was certain: the winds of change were beginning to stir at Bennett Technologies, and both Nick and Mia were at its epicenter, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Part 3. Secrets in the shadows. Late at night, long after most of Bennett Technologies had emptied out for the day, Nick maneuvered his cleaning cart through the dimly lit corridors of the office building. The quiet hum of computers left on overnight filled the air, creating a soothing background symphony. With each swipe of the mop and every desk he tidied, Nick listened intently, gathering whispered conversations and half-hidden secrets. He had learned quickly that the office at night was a different beast altogether. The hustle and bustle of the day gave way to a peculiar stillness, a time when the shadows seemed to stretch longer and every noise felt amplified. Nick had also noticed something else, a pattern of late-night activity that raised his suspicions. It was during these solitary hours that he first encountered Jonathan Morris, the director of human resources. Jonathan was a man in his late 40s, with sharp features and an even sharper tongue. His reputation as a hard-nosed executive preceded him, and employees often whispered about his ruthless tactics behind closed doors. Nick had observed Jonathan a few times, always lingering long after everyone else had gone home. This night was no exception. As Nick made his way through the labyrinth of cubicles, he caught sight of Jonathan in the distance, talking in low tones with another executive. Nick kept his movements casual, ensuring the quiet squeak of his cleaning cart's wheels didn't betray his presence. He positioned himself near a corner, close enough to overhear without drawing attention. "We're running out of time," Jonathan was saying, his voice a hushed growl. "The board is getting restless, and we need to move the funds before anyone catches on." The other man, whose face was obscured by the shadows, nodded. "I've already rerouted some of the project budgets. It's risky, but if we pull it off, we'll have enough to cover our tracks." Jonathan leaned back, glancing around the empty office. "Make sure everything points away from us. If we're going to do this, we need to be invisible." Nick's heart raced as he listened, piecing together the fragmented conversation. They were embezzling funds, diverting money from the company's projects for their own gain. He felt a surge of anger, realizing that his suspicions about internal corruption were more than just paranoia. As the two men continued to plot, Nick's mind raced with questions. How long had this been going on? How deep did the conspiracy run? And most importantly, how could he gather enough evidence to stop them without blowing his cover? A sudden noise broke the tension, a file cabinet closing with a metallic clatter. The two men froze, their eyes darting toward the source of the sound. Nick held his breath, his heart thundering in his chest. He couldn't afford to be discovered, not now. "Who's there?" Jonathan called out, his voice slicing through the silence. Nick remained perfectly still, crouched behind a desk. He knew the office well enough to recognize that the noise had come from a different part of the floor, but he couldn't risk moving just yet. After a tense moment, the other executive spoke. "Probably just the cleaning crew. We should go." Jonathan hesitated, casting one last suspicious glance around the office. "Yeah, let's get out of here." As they left, their footsteps fading into the distance, Nick allowed himself to breathe again. The gravity of the situation settled over him like a heavy shroud. Jonathan was a formidable adversary, and if he was willing to steal from the company, he wouldn't hesitate to eliminate anyone who stood in his way. Nick knew he needed help, someone who understood the intricacies of corporate finance and had the courage to fight alongside him. His thoughts immediately turned to Mia. She was brilliant, resourceful, and, most importantly, unafraid to speak truth to power. But bringing her into this mess also meant putting her at risk. As he gathered his cleaning supplies and continued his rounds, Nick's mind churned with possibilities. He needed to find a way to approach Mia without tipping his hand, to enlist her help in uncovering the full extent of Jonathan's schemes. Little did Nick know, the path he was about to tread would lead him into a tangled web of deception, where every ally was a potential threat, and every decision carried the weight of life and death. But as he pushed his cart down the darkened hallway, one thing was clear. Nick Bennett was ready to fight for his father's legacy, no matter the cost. Part 4. The first clues. The morning sun streamed through the large windows of Bennett Technologies, casting warm, golden light across the bustling office. Nick, once again in his janitor's uniform, moved quietly through the corridors. Despite the bright and welcoming environment, his mind was shadowed with thoughts of the previous night's revelations. As he emptied trash bins and wiped down desks, Nick kept an eye on the employees around him. He was searching for any signs of Jonathan's clandestine activities. His heart was still pounding from what he had overheard the night before, and he knew he needed to tread carefully if he wanted to expose the corruption without revealing his own identity. Near the break room, he spotted Mia. She was pouring herself a cup of coffee, her brow furrowed in concentration as she reviewed some documents. Nick seized the opportunity and approached her, his mind racing to find the right words to draw her into his investigation. "Hey, Mia," he said casually, leaning on his mop handle. "Busy morning?" Mia looked up, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. "Oh, hey, Nick. Yeah, just going over some data sets. There's a lot to sort through." Nick nodded, trying to keep his tone light. "You know, I heard some interesting stuff around here last night. Makes me wonder about what really goes on behind the scenes." Mia's curiosity was piqued. She sipped her coffee, regarding him with interest. "Like what?" "Like people in high places doing things they shouldn't," Nick said, choosing his words carefully. "I've got a feeling there's more happening in this company than meets the eye." Mia glanced around to ensure no one was listening, then leaned in closer. "What do you know?" Nick hesitated, the weight of his secret pressing heavily on him. He had to trust her, but he needed to be cautious. "I can't say much right now, but I think I found something that could be big. I could use someone with your skills to help make sense of it." Mia considered him, her eyes narrowing thoughtfully. "I'm in, but you have to promise me, Nick, that you're not getting into something too dangerous." Nick offered a reassuring smile, though inside he was anything but calm. "I promise. I just want to do what's right." With a nod, Mia agreed to meet him after work to discuss what he had discovered. As she returned to her cubicle, Nick felt a sense of relief. He had an ally, someone he could trust to help him navigate the treacherous waters ahead. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Nick kept his head down, performing his janitorial duties while subtly gathering more information. Every conversation he overheard, every document he glimpsed, added pieces to the puzzle. But it wasn't until later that evening that he stumbled upon the first tangible clue. It was purely by chance. Nick had been emptying trash cans in the finance department when he noticed a crumpled piece of paper on the floor, just out of reach beneath a desk. He reached down, curiosity getting the better of him, and retrieved it. Unfolding the paper, he discovered a printout of an email. The message was from Jonathan, instructing one of his subordinates to divert funds from a crucial project into a mysterious account. The tone of the email was casual, as if embezzling money was just another part of Jonathan's day-to-day operations. Nick's pulse quickened. This was the evidence he needed, a direct link to Jonathan's illegal activities. But as he carefully tucked the email into his pocket, he realized the enormity of the situation. If Jonathan discovered that someone was onto him, the consequences could be dire. He finished his shift, trying to appear as nonchalant as possible, and headed to the designated meeting spot with Mia. They had agreed to meet at a small coffee shop near the office, a place where they could talk without fear of being overheard. Mia was already there, seated at a corner table with her laptop open in front of her. She looked up as Nick approached, her expression a mix of anticipation and concern. "Did you find anything?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Nick slid into the seat across from her and handed her the crumpled email. "I found this in the finance department. It's from Jonathan. He's been redirecting funds." Mia scanned the email, her eyes widening as she absorbed its contents. "This is serious, Nick. If this gets out, it could ruin him." "Exactly," Nick replied. "But we need more. We have to find out who else is involved and where the money is going." Mia nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. "I can access some of the financial records. If there's a trail, I'll find it." As they sat in the dimly lit coffee shop, a sense of camaraderie and determination filled the air. Nick knew they were taking a huge risk, but he also understood that they were fighting for something much larger than themselves: justice for his father's legacy and the future of Bennett Technologies. The road ahead was fraught with danger, and the shadows loomed larger with each passing day. But together, Nick and Mia were ready to face whatever came their way, armed with nothing but their wits and the truth. Part 5. The revelation of Ava. The city lights of New York twinkled below as the evening sky darkened, casting a serene glow over the penthouse apartment where Ava Bennett sat alone, lost in thought. The spacious living room, with its modern decor and panoramic views, felt cold and empty, much like Ava's heart at that moment. She had spent the day at work, trying to maintain a facade of normalcy while the world around her seemed to crumble. Her father's death had left a void that was impossible to fill, and now, the growing distance between her and her fiancé, Ethan, made everything feel even more unstable. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more sinister lurking beneath the surface. As Ava sipped her glass of wine, she heard the soft chime of her phone from across the room. She hesitated, reluctant to break the solitude, but finally set her glass down and picked up the device. A message notification flashed on the screen. It was from an unknown number, and as Ava opened it, a chill ran down her spine. "We know what you did. If you don't want this to become public, meet me at the address below. Alone. Midnight." Ava's heart pounded in her chest as she read and reread the message, dread coiling in her stomach. She knew what it meant, Jonathan. He had been holding something over her for weeks now, ever since he'd discovered a secret she had thought was long buried. Years ago, during a particularly rebellious phase, Ava had been caught up in a minor scandal, a brief entanglement with a questionable investment that her father had quietly covered up. It was a mistake, one she had learned from and moved past, but Jonathan had managed to dig it up, using it as leverage to manipulate her. She knew that if this secret got out, it could destroy her career and her engagement, and tarnish her father's legacy further. Jonathan had threatened to expose her unless she cooperated with his schemes, but Ava had resisted, hoping to find another way out. Now, it seemed, time was running out. With a sigh, she grabbed her coat and headed for the door. The meeting place was in an industrial area on the outskirts of the city, a location that promised anonymity and danger in equal measure. The drive felt interminable, every stoplight and intersection stretching her nerves taut. When she finally arrived, the area was deserted, the silence broken only by the distant hum of machinery. Ava parked her car and stepped into the shadows, her heart a wild drumbeat in her chest. "Over here," a voice called, low and rough. Jonathan stepped out from behind a stack of crates, his expression smug and confident. He was dressed impeccably in a dark suit, his presence commanding in the dimly lit space. Ava approached cautiously, her eyes locked on his. "What do you want, Jonathan?" He chuckled, a sound that made her skin crawl. Straight to the point, as always. "I admire that about you, Ava." She crossed her arms, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. "Cut the crap, Jonathan. You said you'd leave me alone if I stayed out of your business. I've done that." Jonathan nodded, feigning agreement. "True, but things have changed. Your dear father's company is at a crossroads, and I need your help to steer it in the right direction." Ava's jaw tightened. "I'm not getting involved in your schemes. I won't betray my father's legacy." Jonathan stepped closer, his smile vanishing. "You don't have a choice. If you don't help me, that little mistake of yours will be the least of your worries." Ava's mind raced, desperately searching for a way out. She couldn't let Jonathan control her life, but she also couldn't let her past mistakes ruin everything she held dear. She needed a plan, something that would turn the tables on him. "Fine," she said at last, her voice resigned but defiant. "I'll do what you want, but this is the last time." Jonathan's grin returned, a sinister gleam in his eyes. "Good. You'll see, Ava, this is just business. Nothing personal." As he turned to leave, Ava felt a surge of determination. She couldn't let this continue. She needed to fight back, to find a way to expose Jonathan and free herself from his grasp. But first, she needed to talk to Nick. He was the only one who might understand, who might have a solution that didn't involve losing everything she had worked for. It was time to bring him into her world, to trust him with her secret, and to hope that together they could find a way out of this nightmare. With her decision made, Ava returned to her car, her mind clear and focused. The road ahead was uncertain, but she was ready to face whatever challenges came her way, determined to protect her family's legacy at any cost. Part 6. Plan of action. The clock ticked past midnight as Nick sat in his modest apartment, papers spread across the table before him. The dim glow from his laptop cast a soft light over the room, illuminating stacks of financial documents, printed emails, and hastily scribbled notes. Nick was on the verge of piecing together the complex puzzle of Jonathan's embezzlement scheme, but he needed more evidence, more allies, and more time. As he leaned back in his chair, exhaustion tugging at his senses, his phone buzzed. The unexpected call made him sit up straight, adrenaline sparking his senses. It was Ava, her number lighting up the screen. A wave of concern washed over him as he answered. "Nick, I need to talk to you." "It's urgent," Ava's voice came through, tinged with a mix of anxiety and determination. "What's going on, Ava?" Nick asked, already sensing the gravity of her call. "Can we meet? There's something I need to tell you." "Something about Jonathan," she replied, her words carrying the weight of secrets long kept. Nick didn't hesitate. "Of course. Where are you?" "I'm outside the building. I didn't know where else to go," she admitted, her voice breaking slightly. "I'll be right down," Nick assured her, hanging up and grabbing his coat. He descended the stairs quickly, finding Ava waiting near the entrance, her arms wrapped tightly around herself against the chill of the night. They moved to a nearby diner, the kind that was open 24 hours and served endless cups of coffee to bleary-eyed patrons. Inside, they found a booth in the back corner, away from prying eyes and ears. The waitress, a tired woman with dark circles under her eyes, took their order without a word. Ava looked at Nick, her expression one of relief mixed with desperation. "I'm sorry to drag you into this, Nick. I didn't know who else to trust." "Hey, it's okay," Nick replied gently. "Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together." Ava took a deep breath, steadying herself before speaking. "Jonathan's been blackmailing me. He found out about a mistake I made years ago, something my father covered up. Now he's using it to force me into helping him with his schemes." Nick's eyes narrowed, anger flaring. "What's he trying to make you do?" "He wants me to manipulate some of the company's legal documents, make sure everything looks clean when it's not," Ava confessed, her voice laced with frustration and fear. "He's been threatening to expose me if I don't comply." Nick absorbed her words, the pieces of the puzzle falling into place. Jonathan's influence was deeper and more insidious than he had realized. But now, with Ava's insight, they had a fighting chance to bring him down. "We have to stop him, Ava," Nick said, his resolve hardening. "But we'll need a solid plan and more evidence." Ava nodded, relief evident in her eyes. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes, Nick. I can access some of the legal files and trace the paper trails he's been covering up." Nick considered their options, his mind racing with possibilities. "I've been gathering evidence too, but we need to be smart about this. If Jonathan catches wind of what we're doing, it could be dangerous." Ava met his gaze, a fierce determination burning within her. "Then we'll be careful. We'll take him down from the inside, without him ever knowing what hit him." They spent the next few hours strategizing, sharing information, and formulating a plan. Nick outlined the financial anomalies he had discovered, while Ava mapped out the legal loopholes Jonathan was exploiting. Together, they crafted a meticulous strategy, one that involved accessing key company files, gathering testimonials from other employees, and ensuring they had a secure way to store and share their findings. As dawn broke, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, they finalized their plan. They would meet in secret, coordinating their efforts to unmask Jonathan and his network. It was risky, but the stakes were too high to ignore. Before leaving the diner, Ava placed a hand on Nick's arm, gratitude shining in her eyes. "Thank you, Nick, for believing in me and helping me fight this." Nick gave her a reassuring smile. "We're in this together, Ava. We'll bring Jonathan to justice and protect your father's legacy." With their plans set in motion, Nick and Ava left the diner, the first rays of sunlight warming their faces. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, but they were ready to face them, united in their mission to uncover the truth and restore integrity to Bennett Technologies. Part 7. The Climax. The confrontation, the tension in the boardroom was palpable as the members of the Bennett Technologies executive team gathered for their weekly meeting. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, casting long shadows across the polished table where papers, laptops, and the weight of responsibility were spread out before them. Nick stood at the edge of the room, his janitor's uniform replaced with a tailored suit, the guise of the humble worker discarded in favor of the man he truly was. He watched as the executives took their seats, each one oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface. Jonathan Morris, the director of human resources, sat confidently at the head of the table, exuding authority and charisma. His smile was all business, but Nick could see the cold calculation behind his eyes. Nick's heart pounded with anticipation, the culmination of weeks of planning and investigation. He and Ava had worked tirelessly to gather the evidence they needed, and today was the day they would confront Jonathan and his cronies with their deceit. Ava sat beside Nick, her presence a reassuring anchor amid the chaos. She wore a calm expression, but Nick knew the courage it took for her to face the man who had been manipulating her for so long. The meeting commenced, with Jonathan leading the discussion. He spoke of profits and projections, of new projects on the horizon, painting a picture of a company thriving under his guidance. But beneath the polished veneer, Nick saw the cracks he was about to expose. As Jonathan continued, Nick exchanged a glance with Ava. It was time. He cleared his throat, drawing the room's attention. "Excuse me, Jonathan," Nick began, his voice steady but firm. "Before we go any further, there's something we need to discuss." Jonathan raised an eyebrow, feigning curiosity. "Oh? And what might that be, Nick?" Nick stepped forward, his gaze locked on Jonathan. "It's come to my attention that there are serious financial discrepancies in the company's accounts. Funds have been misallocated, and projects have been compromised." The room fell silent, the air heavy with tension. Jonathan's smile faltered, his eyes narrowing slightly. "I'm not sure what you're implying, Nick," Jonathan said, his tone cool and dismissive. "But I assure you, everything is in order." Nick held his ground, unflinching. "We have evidence to the contrary. Detailed records of funds being diverted, accounts being manipulated." Ava joined him, her voice steady and clear. "And emails, Jonathan. Emails instructing your subordinates to cover up these activities." Murmurs erupted around the table as the executives shifted in their seats, eyes darting between Nick, Ava, and Jonathan. The facade of control Jonathan had so carefully maintained began to crumble. Jonathan leaned back in his chair, his smile a shadow of its former self. "This is quite the accusation, coming from a janitor," and he cast a derisive glance at Ava, someone with her own skeletons in the closet. Nick felt a surge of anger, but kept his composure. "This isn't about me or Ava. This is about the integrity of Bennett Technologies, about honoring the legacy my father built." Jonathan's expression darkened, the pretense of civility slipping away. "You think you can just waltz in here, Nick, with your self-righteous crusade and disrupt everything? You're in over your head." Nick shook his head, unwavering. "No, Jonathan, you are. We have all the evidence we need, and we've shared it with the board." Ava placed a stack of documents on the table, each one meticulously detailing the web of deceit Jonathan had spun. The room buzzed with incredulity as the executives pored over the evidence, realization dawning. Jonathan's facade cracked entirely, his calm demeanor giving way to desperation. "This is a witch hunt," he spat, his voice rising. "You have no idea what you're doing." Nick met his gaze, his resolve unyielding. "On the contrary, Jonathan, we know exactly what we're doing. It's over." The board members exchanged glances, the weight of the evidence undeniable. One by one, they voiced their agreement, calling for an immediate investigation into Jonathan's activities. As security was called to escort Jonathan from the building, Nick felt a profound sense of relief. The battle was won, but the war for the soul of Bennett Technologies was just beginning. Jonathan stood, his eyes filled with rage and defiance. "You'll regret this, Nick. Mark my words." But Nick remained steadfast, watching as Jonathan was led away, his threats echoing hollow in the wake of truth. The room slowly emptied, leaving Nick and Ava standing side by side. They had done it. They had faced the storm and emerged victorious. Yet, the road ahead was fraught with challenges, with rebuilding and healing. Ava turned to Nick, a smile breaking through the tension. "We did it," she said, the words a testament to their shared triumph. Nick nodded, gratitude and respect shining in his eyes. "Yeah, we did. Together." The sun rose higher outside, bathing the office in warm light. A new day had dawned for Bennett Technologies, one built on integrity and truth, and Nick and Ava stood ready to guide it toward a brighter future. Part 8. Jonathan's trap. Nick felt a temporary sense of triumph as Jonathan was escorted out of Bennett Technologies, but he knew that their victory was far from secure. The company was still in shock from the revelations, and Nick understood that they had a long way to go to restore trust and stability. Nick stood by his father's old office window, watching the bustling New York streets below, as if searching for answers in the streams of cars and people. He felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders, the pressure to live up to his father's legacy becoming even more palpable. The morning sunlight streamed in, bathing the room in warmth, but Nick's thoughts were already turning to the challenges ahead. His phone buzzed, interrupting his thoughts. It was a text message from Mia. "Nick, we need to talk. Urgent." Nick felt a knot form in his stomach. It wasn't like Mia to be dramatic or alarmist. She was methodical, precise, and always calm under pressure. The urgency in her message was unsettling. He left the office and hurried down the corridor, heading toward Mia's cubicle. As he approached, he noticed her standing by the window, her face etched with worry. "Mia, what's going on?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady despite the unease creeping in. Mia turned to him, her eyes wide with concern. "Nick, I think Jonathan had a contingency plan. I've been going through more data, and there are discrepancies I can't explain." "What kind of discrepancies?" Nick asked, his pulse quickening. "Files that don't match, anomalies in the transaction logs," and Mia hesitated, taking a deep breath before continuing. "Evidence that suggests he might have set you up as a scapegoat." Nick felt the blood drain from his face. "Set me up? How?" Mia motioned for him to follow her to her computer. She brought up a series of documents and transaction records on her screen. "Look here," she said, pointing to several flagged entries. "These transactions are linked to an account under your name. I've traced them back, and it looks like Jonathan may have been funneling money through accounts connected to you, making it appear as if you were involved." Nick stared at the screen, disbelief and anger coursing through him. "But that's impossible. I haven't touched any of these accounts." Mia nodded, her expression grim. "I know, but the evidence is compelling. It's like he anticipated that you might come after him and wanted to have a fallback plan to bring you down if things went south." A cold sweat broke out across Nick's forehead. Jonathan was a step ahead, and Nick had walked right into his trap. The accusations could ruin him and his reputation, not to mention the damage it could do to Bennett Technologies. "What do we do?" Nick asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "We need to act fast," Mia replied. "We have to prove that these transactions were set up without your knowledge and show that Jonathan manipulated the data." Nick nodded, determination hardening his features. "Okay, let's get to work. We need to find any digital fingerprints he left behind, any inconsistencies in the setup." As they delved into the data, tracing digital breadcrumbs and analyzing patterns, the hours slipped by unnoticed. The office was a blur of activity around them, but Nick and Mia were lost in their mission, fueled by urgency and a shared sense of purpose. Ava soon joined them, drawn by the buzz of tension and the need to contribute. She sat down next to Nick, her presence a comforting reminder that they were in this together. "What can I do to help?" Ava asked, rolling up her sleeves. Nick filled her in on the situation, and Ava quickly set to work, utilizing her knowledge of the company's legal systems to help untangle the web Jonathan had woven. The trio worked tirelessly, poring over every detail, every line of code, and every document. They knew they were racing against the clock, that Jonathan would not go down without a fight, and that his trap was cleverly laid to ensnare Nick at the first opportunity. Just as the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the office, Mia let out a small, triumphant sound. "I think I found something." Nick and Ava crowded around her, eyes fixed on the screen as Mia highlighted a series of keystroke logs and timestamps. "Look here," Mia explained, excitement tinged with relief in her voice. "These logs show when the transactions were made, and if you cross-reference them with the building's security footage timestamps, you can prove Nick wasn't even at his desk when these were initiated." Nick felt a surge of hope. "That's it. That's what we need. If we can show that I was elsewhere when these transactions happened, we can start unraveling Jonathan's setup." Ava quickly accessed the building's security system, using her clearance to pull the relevant footage. Together, They compiled the evidence, creating a timeline that clearly showed Nick's innocence and Jonathan's deceit. The pieces were falling into place, and Nick felt a renewed sense of confidence. They were ready to expose Jonathan's trap and clear his name. With everything gathered, Nick stood up, looking at Mia and Ava with gratitude and determination. Let's take this to the board. It's time to finish what we started. Together, they made their way to the executive suite, armed with the truth and the resolve to see justice served. The trap Jonathan had laid for Nick was about to backfire spectacularly, and Nick was ready to reclaim his place, not only as a leader but as a champion for integrity and honesty in a world fraught with corruption. Part 9. Unexpected allies. As the evidence mounted against Jonathan, Nick and Ava knew that their next steps were crucial. They needed to rally support from within Bennett Technologies to expose Jonathan's corrupt schemes fully. The company was reeling from the shock of the allegations, and the employees needed reassurance and a strong leadership presence to guide them through the turmoil. Nick stood in the executive suite, staring out at the city skyline. He was determined to protect his father's legacy and restore the integrity of the company, but he couldn't do it alone. He turned to Ava, who was reviewing the evidence they had gathered. "We need more allies, Ava," Nick said, his voice resolute. "We can't take this on by ourselves. We need to show the board and the employees that they can trust us to lead Bennett Technologies back to stability." Ava nodded, understanding the weight of the task ahead. "There are good people here, Nick. People who believe in what this company stands for. We just have to find them and bring them on board." They decided to reach out to key employees, individuals who had shown dedication and integrity, those who might have witnessed Jonathan's actions but were too afraid to speak out. One of those individuals was Caroline Tran, a senior project manager known for her no-nonsense attitude and commitment to excellence. Caroline was in her office when Nick and Ava approached her. She was surprised to see them, but her curiosity was piqued by their unexpected visit. "Caroline, we need your help," Ava began, her tone earnest. "We've uncovered evidence of Jonathan's misconduct, but we need more people to stand with us to make sure he's held accountable." Caroline leaned back in her chair, considering their words carefully. "You're asking me to go against Jonathan? That's a big risk, especially considering his influence." Nick nodded, acknowledging her concerns. "I know it's a risk, but it's also an opportunity to do what's right. We need people like you, people who can help us make a difference." Caroline studied them for a moment before nodding slowly. "All right, I'm in. Jonathan's been running things his way for too long. It's time for a change." With Caroline on board, Nick and Ava felt a surge of hope. They continued reaching out, holding quiet meetings with other employees, building a coalition of allies who were willing to stand up for what was right. Each person they spoke to added strength to their cause, transforming their small rebellion into a formidable movement. Meanwhile, Nick and Ava worked tirelessly to ensure the evidence they had collected was irrefutable. They knew Jonathan would fight back, and they had to be prepared for any counterattack he might launch. The support of their newfound allies was crucial in this endeavor, providing them with additional insights and first-hand accounts of Jonathan's wrongdoings. One evening, as Nick was reviewing documents in his office, there was a knock at the door. It was Mia, her expression a mix of excitement and urgency. "Nick, you need to see this," she said, handing him a flash drive. "I've been going through the server logs and found something big." Nick plugged the drive into his laptop, his eyes scanning the data Mia had compiled. It was a treasure trove of information, detailing how Jonathan had manipulated project budgets and redirected funds. The digital fingerprints were clear, tracing back to Jonathan's access credentials. "This is incredible, Mia," Nick said, admiration in his voice. "With this, we can finally prove everything." Mia smiled, relieved that her work had paid off. "There's more. I found correspondence between Jonathan and some external partners. It looks like he was planning to move money offshore, probably as a safety net in case things went south." Nick's mind raced with possibilities. This was the break they needed, the final piece of the puzzle that would bring Jonathan's schemes crashing down. As they shared the news with Ava and their other allies, a plan began to form. A plan to present their findings to the board in a way that would leave no doubt about Jonathan's guilt. The employees who had joined their cause were ready to testify, their courage bolstered by the promise of a company that valued honesty and transparency. On the day of the board meeting, the atmosphere at Bennett Technologies was charged with anticipation. Employees gathered in small groups, whispering about the rumors of what was to come. The board members took their seats, their expressions a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. Nick stood at the front of the room, Ava and Mia by his side, and began to speak. He laid out the evidence with precision, highlighting the data breaches, the financial discrepancies, and the testimonies of the employees who had witnessed Jonathan's actions. As he spoke, the room was silent, the weight of the truth settling over everyone present. Nick could see the dawning realization in the eyes of the board members, the shift from doubt to belief as they connected the dots. When Nick finished, Ava stepped forward, her voice steady and clear. This is about more than just holding one person accountable. It's about restoring the values this company was built on: integrity, innovation, and trust. We owe it to ourselves, to Richard Bennett, and to every employee here to make things right. The board members exchanged glances, their deliberations swift. With the evidence laid bare and the voices of their employees demanding change, they had no choice but to act. They voted unanimously to terminate Jonathan's employment and to launch a full investigation into his activities. As the decision was announced, a ripple of relief and triumph spread through the room. Nick, Ava, and Mia exchanged smiles, their efforts vindicated. They had succeeded in not only exposing Jonathan, but also in uniting Bennett Technologies under a renewed banner of trust and accountability. The allies they had gathered around them stood proud, knowing they had played a part in shaping the future of the company. Together, they had faced the storm and emerged stronger, ready to lead Bennett Technologies into a new era of integrity and excellence. Part 10. The truth comes to light. The morning after the board meeting, the atmosphere at Bennett Technologies was electric with a sense of renewed purpose. The employees, once wary and uncertain, now felt the winds of change sweeping through the company. It was as if the entire building had taken a collective breath, preparing for a new chapter. Nick stood in the atrium, watching as employees gathered for an all-hands meeting. The board had decided to address the company directly, to acknowledge the challenges they had faced, and to reaffirm their commitment to transparency and integrity. It was a pivotal moment, a chance to turn the page and rebuild the trust that had been eroded. Ava and Mia stood beside Nick, their expressions a mix of anticipation and resolve. The past weeks had tested them in ways they hadn't anticipated, but together, they had emerged stronger, bonded by their shared mission. As the employees settled into their seats, the CEO, Robert Langston, stepped up to the podium. He was a seasoned executive, known for his steady leadership and unwavering dedication to the company's core values. Today, his demeanor was grave, but there was a spark of determination in his eyes. "Thank you all for being here," Robert began, his voice carrying across the room. "I want to start by acknowledging the hard work and dedication each of you has shown during these difficult times. Bennett Technologies has always been more than just a company. It's a community, a family, built on trust and innovation." He paused, allowing his words to sink in before continuing. "We've faced some challenges recently, challenges that have tested our integrity and our resolve. But I'm proud to stand here today and say that we have faced those challenges head-on, thanks to the courage and tenacity of individuals within our ranks." Nick felt a swell of pride at Robert's words, knowing the significance of what they had accomplished. As Robert continued, he glanced at Nick and Ava, a silent acknowledgement of their efforts. "It is with great relief and gratitude that I can announce the conclusion of our investigation into the recent allegations of misconduct. The evidence presented has been thorough and compelling, and as a result, we have taken decisive action to remove the individuals responsible for these breaches of trust." A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd, the employees reacting to the confirmation of Jonathan's dismissal. The relief was palpable, a collective exhale as the shadow of corruption lifted. Robert continued, his tone resolute. "Going forward, we are committed to fostering a culture of transparency and accountability. We will implement new safeguards to ensure that our values remain at the forefront of everything we do, and we will rely on each of you to hold us to that standard." As he spoke, Nick felt a sense of hope take root. The changes they were implementing weren't just about rectifying past wrongs. They were about building a future where every employee felt valued and heard, where innovation thrived under the guidance of ethical leadership. Robert concluded his speech with a call to action, urging the employees to embrace the changes and to work together to shape the future of Bennett Technologies. As the meeting ended and the employees dispersed, a renewed sense of purpose filled the air. Nick, Ava, and Mia lingered in the atrium, watching as their colleagues returned to their workstations with a newfound energy. "We did it," Ava said, her voice filled with awe. "We actually did it." Nick nodded, a smile spreading across his face. It wasn't just us. It was everyone who believed in what this company stands for. We just helped bring the truth to light. Mia glanced at Nick, her expression thoughtful. "What's next for you, Nick? Now that the dust has settled?" Nick considered her question, realizing that his perspective on leadership had shifted during the ordeal. "I think it's time to take a more active role in the company. There's a lot of work to be done, and I want to make sure we're moving in the right direction." Ava grinned, a playful glint in her eyes. "You mean you're going to trade in your janitor's uniform for a suit full-time?" Nick chuckled, shaking his head. "Something like that. But I won't forget what I learned along the way. Sometimes you need to see things from a different perspective to truly understand what's important." As they stood together, a sense of camaraderie and accomplishment wrapped around them like a warm embrace. They had faced adversity and come out stronger, their bond forged in the fires of challenge and change. The company was on the path to recovery, and the future was bright with possibilities. As Nick, Ava, and Mia returned to their work, they knew that the journey was far from over, but they were ready to face whatever came next, united in their commitment to a brighter, more honest future for Bennett Technologies. Part 11. Reconciliation and transformation. The following weeks at Bennett Technologies marked a period of profound transformation. The company was bustling with a renewed energy, employees invigorated by the promise of change and transparency. The air felt different, charged with possibility, as if the very walls of the building were vibrating with anticipation. Nick walked through the halls, exchanging greetings with colleagues who were now more than just co-workers. They were allies, bound together by the trials they had faced. His role within the company had shifted dramatically since the confrontation with Jonathan, and he found himself embracing the responsibilities with a newfound sense of purpose. As he approached his office, a space that once belonged to his father, Nick paused, taking a moment to absorb the significance of his journey. The room was filled with the scent of fresh paint and the soft hum of computer monitors, a testament to the company's evolution. It was no longer a monument to the past, but a beacon for the future. Inside, Ava was already at work, reviewing project proposals with a meticulous eye. She looked up as Nick entered, offering a warm smile that spoke of their shared history and unspoken understanding. "How are the new initiatives coming along?" Nick asked, taking a seat across from her. Ava set aside her papers, her expression thoughtful. "They're promising. The teams are excited, and we're seeing some really innovative ideas coming through. People are more willing to speak up and share their thoughts now." Nick nodded, pleased by the progress. "That's exactly what we were hoping for. A culture where everyone feels empowered to contribute and challenge the status quo." Ava's smile widened. "It's amazing what a difference a few months can make. I mean, look at us. Who would have thought we'd be here, leading the charge for change?" Nick chuckled, a hint of nostalgia in his voice. "I remember when I first came in as a janitor. It feels like a lifetime ago." Ava laughed, shaking her head. "And now you're running the place. Life's funny that way, isn't it?" Their conversation was interrupted by a soft knock on the door. It was Mia, carrying a stack of reports and her laptop. She entered with her usual efficiency, setting her materials down before joining the conversation. "I've got the latest analytics ready," Mia announced, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. "The numbers are looking good. Employee satisfaction is up, and productivity is higher than it's been in years." Nick exchanged a glance with Ava, the weight of their shared accomplishments evident in their smiles. "That's fantastic, Mia. Thank you for everything you've done to help us get here." Mia waved off the praise with a grin. "It was a team effort. And besides, it's been exciting to see how much we've grown." The three of them spent the morning reviewing data and discussing strategies, their conversation peppered with laughter and a sense of camaraderie that spoke to the bond they had forged. They were more than just colleagues. They were a team, each member bringing their unique strengths to the table. As the day progressed, Nick found himself reflecting on his own journey. He had started this endeavor with a sense of obligation, driven by the need to honor his father's legacy. But now, he realized that it was about more than just preserving the past. It was about building something new and lasting. His thoughts drifted back to Ava, to the challenges they had faced together and the trust they had built. They had come a long way from the tentative alliance formed out of necessity, their partnership now one of mutual respect and shared vision. "Nick," Ava said, breaking through his reverie, "there's something I wanted to talk to you about." Nick turned his attention to her, sensing the seriousness in her tone. "What's on your mind?" Ava hesitated for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "I've been thinking about the future, about where we're headed, and I realized that I want to be part of this, of what we're building long term." Nick felt a surge of warmth at her words. "I'm glad to hear that, Ava. We couldn't do this without you." Ava smiled, a hint of determination in her eyes. "I've also been considering taking on more responsibilities, maybe stepping into a leadership role. I want to help shape the direction of the company." Nick nodded, recognizing the potential and drive in Ava's aspirations. "I think that's a great idea. You've shown incredible resilience and leadership already, and I know you'd be an asset in any role you take on." The conversation was a turning point for both of them, solidifying their commitment to the future of Bennett Technologies. They were ready to take the company to new heights, guided by the lessons they had learned and the values they cherished. As the day drew to a close, Nick stood by the window of his office, watching as the sun set over the city. The sky was painted in hues of orange and pink, a reminder that every ending was a new beginning. He felt a sense of peace, knowing that they were on the right path, that the company was stronger and more united than ever before. The challenges they had faced had not only tested their resolve but had also forged a new vision for Bennett Technologies, one that embraced change and celebrated innovation. With Ava and Mia by his side, Nick was confident that they could overcome any obstacle and seize any opportunity that lay ahead. Together, they were ready to lead the company into a future filled with promise, guided by integrity and driven by the power of teamwork. Part 12. Lasting impact. In the months following the dramatic overhaul at Bennett Technologies, the company underwent a remarkable transformation that reverberated through every department and corridor. The energy that pulsed through the building was palpable, a testament to the renewed spirit of innovation and integrity. Nick Bennett stood at the heart of it all, watching as the fruits of their labor began to blossom. The company's turnaround wasn't just evident in the numbers, though profits were up and market confidence was soaring, but in the faces of the employees who now walked the halls with a sense of pride and ownership. As Nick entered the company's bustling cafeteria, he couldn't help but smile at the lively atmosphere. Conversations hummed, laughter filled the air, and the once tense environment had transformed into a space where creativity and collaboration thrived. It was everything Nick had hoped for, and more. Mia joined him, balancing a tray of food and her ever-present laptop. She took a seat across from Nick, her expression one of satisfaction and optimism. "Things are really changing around here," she said, gesturing to the vibrant scene around them. "I've been getting feedback from the teams, and it's overwhelmingly positive. People feel heard and valued." Nick nodded, the warmth of their accomplishments spreading through him. "That's exactly what we wanted. A company where everyone has a voice and can contribute to our success." Mia smiled, setting her laptop aside. "And it's thanks to you, Nick. You had the vision to see this through, even when things looked bleak." Nick shook his head, modest as always. "It was a team effort. Everyone here played a part in making this happen." Their conversation was interrupted by Ava, who approached with her own tray and a mischievous grin. "I heard there's a party going on here. Mind if I join?" Nick chuckled, gesturing for her to sit. "Of course, Ava. We were just talking about how things are shaping up." Ava settled into the seat beside them, her eyes shining with excitement. "I've been working on a new mentorship program for incoming employees. I think it'll really help foster the culture we're building." Mia perked up, intrigued. "That sounds amazing. What's the focus?" Ava leaned in, her enthusiasm contagious. "It's about creating a support network, Pairing new hires with experienced employees who can guide them, help them navigate challenges, and encourage them to innovate. Nick listened, impressed by Ava's initiative. "That's a brilliant idea, Ava. It's exactly what we need to keep pushing forward." As they discussed the details, Nick felt a sense of fulfillment settle over him. This was the company he had dreamed of, one where every employee felt empowered to make a difference, where innovation was celebrated, and where integrity was the foundation of their success. The impact of their efforts extended beyond the walls of Bennett Technologies. The company's reputation in the industry had been revitalized, drawing attention and admiration from peers and competitors alike. Nick's inbox was flooded with invitations to speak at conferences, requests for interviews, and opportunities to share the story of their transformation. He accepted these engagements with a sense of purpose, eager to inspire others and share the lessons they had learned. One evening, after a particularly engaging panel discussion, Nick returned to his office, reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. The office was quiet, the usual hustle and bustle having subsided as employees headed home for the day. He stood by the window, watching the city skyline bathed in the glow of the setting sun. The view was a constant reminder of the challenges they had faced and the triumphs they had achieved. It was a symbol of resilience, growth, and the power of determination. As he contemplated the future, Nick's thoughts turned to his father. He wondered what Richard Bennett would think of the changes they had made, the legacy they were building. Nick liked to believe that his father would be proud, not only of the company's success but of the values they had chosen to uphold. The door opened and Ava entered, a thoughtful expression on her face. She joined Nick by the window, taking in the view alongside him. "It's been quite a journey, hasn't it?" she mused, her voice carrying a note of wonder. Nick nodded, a smile tugging at his lips. "It has, but it's only the beginning." Ava glanced at him, curiosity sparking in her eyes. "What do you see for the future, Nick?" He considered her question, the possibilities stretching out before him like an open road. "I see a company that continues to innovate, that leads with integrity and inspires others to do the same. A place where people are excited to come to work every day, knowing they're part of something bigger." Ava smiled, the shared vision resonating between them. "I think we're on the right track." They stood together in companionable silence, the city lights twinkling in the distance. It was a moment of reflection, of gratitude for how far they had come, and anticipation for the journey ahead. Nick knew there would be challenges, that the road to sustained success was fraught with obstacles. But he also knew that they had the right team, the right values, and the right mindset to overcome whatever lay ahead. With Ava, Mia, and the entire Bennett Technologies team by his side, Nick was ready to face the future head-on, confident in their ability to leave a lasting impact on the world. Together, they were poised to make a difference, one innovation at a time, guided by the principles of honesty, collaboration, and courage. Part 13. A new dawn. The winter sun rose over New York City, casting a golden hue across the skyline. The offices of Bennett Technologies stood tall amidst the bustling cityscape, a symbol of resilience and rebirth. Inside, the air buzzed with anticipation as employees gathered in the atrium for a special event. Today marked the official unveiling of Bennett Technologies' new strategic initiative, a project designed to propel the company into the future and solidify its place as a leader in technological innovation. The initiative, called Vision 2025, was a culmination of months of hard work, creativity, and collaboration among every member of the team. Nick Bennett stood at the front of the atrium, watching as employees filled the space, their faces eager and expectant. He felt a surge of pride seeing the diverse array of talent and dedication that had brought them to this moment. It was a testament to the journey they had all embarked on together, a journey that had tested their mettle and revealed their true potential. As the crowd settled, Nick stepped up to the podium, the weight of leadership both humbling and exhilarating. He took a deep breath, his eyes sweeping over the sea of faces that looked to him for guidance and inspiration. "Good morning, everyone," Nick began, his voice resonating with confidence and warmth. "Today is a milestone in the history of Bennett Technologies, a day that marks the beginning of a new chapter for our company." The audience listened intently, the atmosphere charged with excitement and curiosity. Vision 2025 is not just a project, it's a promise, Nick continued. A promise to innovate, to push boundaries, and to make a positive impact on the world through our technology. He paused, allowing the significance of his words to settle over the crowd. But more than that, Vision 2025 is about who we are as a company. It's about the values that guide us, the integrity that defines us, and the collaboration that empowers us to achieve greatness. Ava, standing nearby, watched with pride as Nick spoke, her own heart swelling with anticipation. She had played a crucial role in shaping Vision 2025, her ideas and leadership instrumental in bringing it to life. Mia, too, was in the crowd, her presence a reminder of the teamwork and ingenuity that had fueled their success. She had worked tirelessly alongside Nick and Ava, her analytical mind and creative solutions integral to their accomplishments. Nick continued, his gaze meeting the eyes of those who had supported him throughout their journey. We've faced challenges and overcome obstacles, but through it all, we've stayed true to our mission. We've built a company where everyone's voice matters, where innovation thrives, and where we work together to make a difference. The room erupted in applause, the sound a powerful affirmation of their shared vision and commitment. But our work is not done, Nick added, his voice rising above the applause. We must continue to strive for excellence, to embrace change, and to lead with courage and compassion. We have the opportunity to shape the future, and it's up to us to seize it. As the applause subsided, Nick introduced the details of Vision 2025, a roadmap of ambitious projects, cutting-edge technologies, and initiatives aimed at driving sustainable growth and fostering a culture of inclusivity and empowerment. The presentation showcased the diverse talents of Bennett Technologies, highlighting projects in areas such as artificial intelligence, renewable energy, and digital solutions designed to improve lives and communities worldwide. As the presentation concluded, the audience rose to their feet, a standing ovation echoing through the atrium. The moment was electric, a celebration of what they had achieved and what they would accomplish together. Nick stepped back from the podium, his heart full of gratitude and determination. He knew that the success of Bennett Technologies wasn't about any one person. It was about the collective effort and spirit of everyone involved. It was about the power of collaboration, the strength of community, and the courage to dream big. Ava joined him, her eyes shining with pride. We did it, Nick. We've set the course for something truly special. Nick nodded, his smile reflecting the joy and optimism he felt. And it's only the beginning, Ava. We're just getting started. Mia approached, her face alight with enthusiasm. The team is ready. Everyone's excited to dive into the projects and make Vision 2025 a reality. Nick placed a hand on her shoulder, the gesture a silent acknowledgement of their partnership and shared success. I couldn't ask for a better team. With all of us working together, there's nothing we can't achieve. As the employees mingled, exchanging ideas and celebrating their achievements, Nick felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The journey they had embarked on had transformed not only the company but also himself. He had grown as a leader, learning the importance of humility, empathy, and the power of listening. The sun continued to rise, its rays streaming through the windows and illuminating the faces of the Bennett Technologies team. It was a new dawn, a new day filled with promise and potential. Nick knew that challenges lay ahead, but he faced the future with confidence and hope. He was surrounded by an incredible team, a family bound by a shared mission and an unwavering belief in the power of technology to change the world. As he stood with Ava and Mia, watching the celebration unfold around them, Nick understood that this was more than just a company. It was a legacy built on trust, innovation, and the determination to make a lasting impact. And in that moment, Nick Bennett knew that they were ready to embrace the future, to continue their journey of discovery and innovation, and to make Bennett Technologies a beacon of progress and possibility for generations to come. Together, they were unstoppable, united in their quest to create a better world, one innovation at a time. If you enjoyed the thrilling story, subscribe, like, comment, and check out the next exciting tale.